Permit me to stand on the protocol as already established in the interest of time. It is a privilege and high honor to address the Nigerian Bar Association at this important moment in our history, when our country is preparing to make one of the most consequential changes to its constitutional and security order since the return to democracy. I bring you the greetings and well wishes of our President and Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. Mr. President has asked me to congratulate the Nigerian Bar Association on this occasion of our 66th Annual General Conference and convey his sincere appreciation to the association for continuing to be a principled voice and a diligent partner in the joint effort to build a new Nigeria that exceeds all our best expectations. His Excellency has asked that I speak to you candidly today about why this administration is pursuing this reform, what we intend to build, why it matters, and the standard by which the country should judge our work. The first duty of government is protection. When lawful protection is absent, schools close, businesses retreat, and communities begin to make dangerous arrangements for their own survival. Who polices Nigeria? That is the question. The Constitution gives a clear answer. Section 214 establishes the Nigerian Police Force as the only police force for the Federation. For a citizen in danger, the answer is measured less by constitutional text than by time. Did anyone answer the call? How far away was the nearest patrol? Did help arrive before the damage was done? These are the questions that are asked. Now, the theme of this conference is beyond limits. On policing, we cannot move beyond our limits until we are honest about them. President Tinubu has chosen to confront a truth Nigeria has postponed for too long. A country of our size and diversity cannot continue to depend on a single centrally commanded police institution for all its policing needs. We ask one police structure to serve crowded cities, remote settlements, and long border corridors, often with too few officers and too little local knowledge. We have stretched it beyond what institution can reasonably carry. Now, in this respect, Nigeria stands apart from nearly every federation comparable to us in scale and complexity. In the United States, in Canada, Australia, in Germany, in India, and in Brazil, policing authority is distributed between federal and constituent governments, and much of ordinary policing is carried out by the state, provincial, or local institutions. Nigeria, in contrast, constitutionally prohibits every state from establishing a police service and attempts to meet profoundly local security needs through a single national chain of command. That distinction has not served us well. It has left our policing system at odds with the practical demands of our federation. The easier political course would have been to continue the debate and leave the arrangement untouched, because critical reforms are always difficult and impose political costs. President Tinubu has decided that further postponement is itself a choice. It is the wrong choice, and citizens have carried its consequences far too long By proposing a dual policing system, the federal government is prepared to share an authority it has long held alone, because the safety of Nigerians matters more than preserving a familiar arrangement. This decision to move towards a dual policing system for our country is not an indictment of every officer of the Nigerian police force. Many serve with courage and decency in conditions that will test the strongest individual. Some are paid with their lives. The sacrifice makes reform even more urgent, because courage should not have to compensate indefinitely for structural weaknesses. Yet, decentralization without professional standards and constitutional restraint will reproduce the same failures closer to the citizen. Our task is to bring lawful protection nearer to Nigerians while binding police power more firmly to law. Now, this reform goes to the heart of how our federation works. Nigerians look to state governments when insecurity rises. Yet, those governments do not command the only police force recognized by the Constitution. Thus, responsibility and lawful capacity are separated. A dual system will begin to correct the imbalance. States that are willing and able should have the means to protect their people, while the Federation retains a capable national service for federal responsibilities and interstate crime. Every citizen will remain within one constitutional order. Excuse me for a minute. I'm not sure how the gentlemen who were on this stage were able to withstand the heat here, but I'll have to take off my jacket if you don't mind, so that I can be a little bit more comfortable in addressing this very, very important issue of the day. Every service will remain within one constitutional order, like I said. A Nigerian must receive equal protection in any state, regardless of origin, ethnicity, religion, or political affiliation. Consider what these reforms will mean for the citizen. Success means that help arrives within a reasonable time and that officers understand the terrain they police. A victim should be able to report a crime without fear that the information will be sold or used against him. An investigation should be competent enough to stand in court. When an officer abuses power, the complaint should reach an institution able to act. This vision of the future inspires these reforms. It is important that we understand and agree on the specific nature of the problems we are trying to solve through these reforms. Nigeria first has a problem of reach. That's one of the problems of our police, the problem of reach. We do not have enough deployable police personnel to provide the policing coverage our population and geography require. National headcount matters, but the decisive measure is how much professional policing reaches the public. Our reality today is police commands that look adequately staffed on paper, while whole communities remain hours away from help. Nigeria currently has approximately one police officer for every 650 citizens, compared with the widely used international benchmark of one officer for every 450 people. On paper alone, this leaves the country roughly 160 officers short. The practical deficit is greater because not every officer on the nominal strength is available for routine policing in our communities. When you consider that over an estimated 100,000 officers are deployed on administrative and special protection duties, the shortfall becomes even greater. State police services can expand the presence available across the country and place responsibility closer to the people affected by failure. However, increasing the numbers without changing the standard will create a greater danger. Police authority includes the power to search, arrest, detain, and in defined circumstances, to use force. Entry into that profession, therefore, should be among the most exacting processes in public service. Political recommendation cannot replace a background check. Training must prepare officers to understand the law, preserve evidence, and exercise force within lawful limits. Professionalism also depends on what the institution asks of an officer and what it gives in return. We cannot demand integrity while tolerating irregular pay, uncertain pensions, or neglect of officers injured in service. Policing should become a respected career that able Nigerians deliberately choose, with fair remuneration and a credible path for advancement. Accountability should be equally serious. An officer dismissed for brutality, extortion, or criminal association in one service should never be able or allowed to reappear in another uniform elsewhere quietly. Local recruitment can improve intelligence because useful information begins with familiarity. An officer who knows the language, knows the roads, knows the relationships within a community is better placed to recognize what matters. That closeness also creates vulnerabilities. A police officer may face pressure from political patrons or old communal loyalties. Merit, diversity, and careful vetting will be essential. Public trust in the police will follow from the conduct of police personnel and institutions. Citizens will share information when they believe it will be protected and that police power has consequences when abused. Members of the bar, chairing the Presidential Working Group has made one fact impossible for me to ignore. Public debate has greatly understated the scale of this undertaking. We are not drafting a permission slip for 36 additional departments. No. We are redesigning the way lawful force is organized in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have to determine who may recruit and who may arm any officer. We have to determine who may direct operations and who investigates misconduct. We must establish how services work across state lines and what happens when one falls below the national standard. The constitutional process is only the first part of the work. Both chambers of the National Assembly have approved proposed changes that will permit a federal police service and state police services. The National Assembly must complete any remaining harmonization and transmit a common text to the state houses of assembly. At least 24 of the 36 state houses must approve the amendment before it can proceed for presidential access. Until those steps are completed, state police remains a proposal. The Presidential Working Group is preparing the National Policing Bill while that process continues, because government should be ready when and if the amendment succeeds. The bill itself cannot create state police unless the Constitution first permits it. It is intended to provide the common framework for professional standards, state readiness, inspection, complaints, information sharing, firearms control, funding, and transition. A state that chooses to establish a service will still need its own law and institutions. It must show that the service can be sustained and meet the national conditions for operation. Existing security outfits cannot simply be renamed and handed wider powers. The Federal Police Service must also emerge stronger and more clearly focused. It will remain indispensable for federal offenses, interstate criminal networks, and specialist capabilities that no state should be expected to build alone. Clear rules will be required for joint operations, hot pursuit, and competing claims to jurisdictions. We will not build a system that allows a criminal to become invisible by crossing a state boundary. Local intelligence must become integral to policing in our community. The question at the center of this session is larger than who polices Nigeria. We'll also have to answer who polices the police. A governor elected by the people cannot be removed from responsibility for public safety. He or she may properly set broad security priorities and seek legislative approval for the resources required. Operational command is different. No governor should possess the personal power to order the arrest of an opponent, stop an investigation, disperse a lawful meeting, or direct how officers act in an election. The law must draw that line through institutions, not through promises. Appointments and removals should not reward personal obedience to a political office holder. An officer who refuses an unlawful instruction needs protection. Serious misconduct by senior command cannot be investigated only by subordinates within the same chain. Bodies require legal independence and access to records. Citizens need remedies while their rights can still be protected. Readiness also has a financial meaning. A state that can buy vehicles and uniforms for an inauguration but cannot meet payroll in the third year is not ready to operate a police service. Financial weakness can turn an armed institution towards informal payments, private patrons, and political dependence, as we have already seen demonstrated every day under our current arrangement. The recurring costs of salaries, pensions, training, communications, and independent oversight must be considered before a service begins operation. Policing also sits within a wider justice system. More arrests will not make Nigeria safer if investigations remain weak, evidence is mishandled, or suspects disappear into unlawful detention. The measure of a police service is the number of crimes it lawfully solves and the confidence citizens place in its conduct. Now, this is familiar ground for the bar. Lawyers see every day how a defective investigation can defeat justice for the victim and the accused alike. Some concerns have focused on the timing of this reform and the approach of another election season. Now, let me be clear. Those concerns are understandable because police power can shape political competition, and the risk of partisan misuse must be taken seriously. However, that is an argument for stronger safeguards, not for indefinite delay. There is no election-free season for governing. Nigeria holds general elections and frequent off-cycle elections. If government pauses every necessary reform whenever an election approaches, we cede more of our civic space to politics at the expense of governance. In Nigeria, quote and unquote, after the election, can now easily become another word for never. The election calendar must not become a convenient excuse to wallow in the politics of postponement, which I spoke to earlier. We have done that for far too long, and the costs are vivid all around us. The framework we are designing can bring policing closer to the people while building strong national standards, independent oversight, and firm safeguards for every citizen. That is not a task that can or should be delayed any longer. President Tinubu established the Presidential Working Group to prepare an executive proposal capable of meeting this test. We have constituted a policy advisory committee that brings operational experience, legal knowledge, and independent scrutiny into the work. We opened the process to public submission and have begun examining the memoranda received. The emerging draft will undergo consultation and legal validation before the executive process is completed. After this, the bill will be transmitted to the National Assembly, which will exercise its full constitutional authority over every clause, comma, and punctuation. The Nigerian Bar Association has a distinct duty in this undertaking. Already, the president of the NBA is a member of the Presidential Working Group, and the association has nominated 4 members to the Policy Advisory Committee. Beyond that, lawyers will help define the constitutional boundaries of the framework and draft the state laws that give it life. Members of this profession will serve in oversight institutions, prosecute offenses, defend accused persons, represent victims, and ask the courts to restrain unlawful power. After the National Policing Bill is drafted, with the permission of Mr. President, I will invite the NBA to lead a rigorous legal stress test of the emerging framework. Test it against the best standards and help us produce a framework that our country can trust. The serving men and women of the Nigerian police force also have a stake in the outcome. Their operational knowledge is indispensable. The project is not founded on the belief that Nigerian officers are incapable. It rests instead on the recognition that professionalism cannot flourish inside an overstretched structure. Reform should give good officers better training, stronger welfare, a clearer professional identity, and institutions that protect lawful judgment. State governments will require no private force under this reform. They will assume a public responsibility that must be discharged under the Constitution, funded transparently and supervised by the law. The National Assembly and State Houses of Assembly will have to resist convenient ambiguities. Civil society and the media will have to follow the institutions after the ceremonies have ended. The work belongs to all of us, not to one administration. I have had the privilege of serving President Tinubu at close quarters through reforms whose political difficulty was clear from the beginning. Difficulty for a reason to look away. On policing, his instruction has remained consistent and clear. Confront the structural problem and listen to those who understand it. The safeguards must be strong enough to motivate, to outlive the people presently in office. The framework must work in the Nigeria we have, rather than in an ideal country that exists only on paper. The present arrangement is often treated as a safe option. It is not safe. It has left communities across the country beyond effective reach, weakened intelligence, and separated responsibility for security from the lawful capacity to provide it. Nigeria can continue to manage those failures or build a better system with our eyes open to the dangers and prepared to meet and overcome them. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, the real measures of this reform will be found in the answer to these questions. Does help reach a community in time? Are crimes lawfully solved? Does misconduct produce consequences? We should also ask whether an officer can refuse an unlawful order without losing a career, and whether a citizen can challenge abuse before the damage becomes irreversible. President Tinubu has chosen to confront a truth Nigeria postponed for too long. The present policing architecture cannot, and I repeat, cannot carry the full weight of this country's security needs. Decentralization without discipline would multiply the danger. We therefore choose the harder course. Build greater capacity, place protection closer to the people, and subject every police service to the Constitution. When this work is done, a Nigerian in danger should be able to call the state and receive help. An officer acting lawfully should know that the institution stands behind him. A political office holder issuing an unlawful order should find the law in his way. The police will protect the citizen, and the law will police power and police the police itself. That is the system the President has asked us to build. That is the standard by which our work should be judged. I congratulate the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mazi, Afam, Osigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, on the conclusion of his distinguished tenure as leader of the greatest bar association in the world. I thank you for your service to the bar and your service to our country, and I wish you the very best in the next chapter. After Dame Priscilla Kuye's service as the first female president of our association, an office she worked tirelessly in and distinguished herself. That is 3 decades too long. Our association, under your leadership, must make it a priority to ensure that ours is an association where every member can aspire to lead and be given the opportunity to serve. I wish you a successful tenure, Madam President, and I assure you of my support and the support of the administration as you lead the bar. I also thank the chairman and members of the planning committee of this annual general conference and others whose efforts and contributions have made this conference and this session possible. And I thank all of you for your time. May God bless and keep you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.